So this is going to be a more blog-like video than usual, so I hope you don't mind that too much. I think I can recognise that my skills have come a long way over the course of this past year, even if they're still very far from perfect. This time last year I was working on a spin-off game to a strange audio show named Spider-Man in the Rhineland, which I technically co-host with a friend of mine known as Magos on YouTube. It was a fairly simple walking simulator type thing where the player would hold the up arrow key for about 2 minutes and they would pass some poorly drawn pixel art backdrops. The backdrops really weren't that great, though creating them was very helpful towards developing my ability to draw pixel art. It's actually quite funny when playing it. You could actually see the backdrops improving as you played through the levels. Just because I was so bad at the beginning, any improvement was very apparent. Apart from that though, it was a bit rubbish and I never really completed it, so I guess you can't play it. Sorry about that. There's one video of somebody playing it, but that's it. After that, I made a few short platformer-style walking simulators. They were something, and I'd be lying if I wasn't a little bit embarrassed about just how pretentious they were trying to be. Rather than getting into those, let's just move on. In about April, I made the first game that I'm actually quite happy with. It was called Super Displacement, and originally intended to be a kind of remake of a game I made back in 2016 named Don't Be Still. Ultimately, I changed a lot, and it's barely even related to Don't Be Still at this point. For those of you who haven't played it, Super Displacement is an arcade-style shooter wherein you move at high speeds and shoot some squares. The idea is that if you touch the walls, you'll lose, and the enemies, rather than dealing damage, will bounce you around quite vigorously to try to throw you into a wall. I'm not editing that out, I misspoke. It's pretty fun to play, even though looking back on it, there are a few things which I just didn't think to include or tweak in particular ways. Overall, it's a bit rough around the edges, but I'm pretty happy with it. Next, I participated in my first Ludum Dare, which is, again, about sometime in April, I think. It was Ludum Dare 38. My submission was called Polar Protector, since the crux of the game was to defend literal poles running through the planet from alien enemy creatures. There were some fairly glaring design flaws, such as it being very difficult to determine whether the enemies were actually attacking the poles. They would actually just stand still and the HP bar at the top would slowly begin to tick down. It's not very clear and a lot of people got confused. Despite that, it held up well enough and I got 77th place in the fun category, so I definitely count that one as a win. Soon afterwards, I got to work on the game after the jam. I added a new mechanic wherein the player would decide how the enemies got stronger, and I think a lot of you will probably recognise how that one turned out. It didn't work perfectly in Polar Protector, but so far it's working very nicely in my current project, Masochist. Anyway, I did start working with Masochist shortly after Polar Protector, once I realised that mechanic just wasn't working. It's been a slow yet very educational experience, starting a project with relatively little knowledge and intuition regarding design, art, or anything else that a game developer should really know. So far, I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. My game is nearly like a real game. Well, a fairly second-rate one, but it doesn't look like somebody's first project. Which is especially good because this is definitely not my first project. I've done like 5, 6 more before this. I don't know, a lot. I'm not going to go step by step through my other projects. Most of them are Ludum Dare entries, and this has dragged on long enough, and I think you get the idea by now. I started out pretty bad, and now I'm only a little bit bad. Hooray! So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos which are probably less blog style than this one, since I usually like to present useful ideas to my audience, not just talk about myself. Talking about myself is fun though, so I can't promise that.